This is pretty mind-blowing, but I believe I've stumbled upon the genuine secret of 3, 6, and 9. This is not a speculative theory, it verifiably works. And it's not really a discovery either, but instead it's part of a rediscovery of the lost sciences that were known and utilized by our ancient ancestors. Verifiably so, and I'm able to back up my claims. First, consider for a moment a reality in which we had not yet developed a system of counting and mathematics at all, a clean slate. I believe this is somewhat of a necessary step in the thinking process to be able to fully comprehend this theory, because I am indeed making the horribly bold suggestion that this theory provides an entirely new basis for not just mathematics, but for counting and our understanding of what numbers objectively are in relation to our universe and ourselves. And I use the word new loosely here, as I can already provide a host of evidence this system of harmonic, multidimensional mathematics is as ancient as our written records themselves, and even as ancient as our universe, as it's the mathematical language of unified physics. The 396 is the basis for Marko Rodin's vortex-based mathematics, and the basis for Malcolm Bendall's plasmoid unification model. It's the secret of Nikola Tesla's genius, the music of the spheres of the Greeks, the secret doctrine of the Freemasons, Martinists, and secret societies, and the temple science of the ancient Egyptians. The highly specific harmonic numbers, first expanded from the 3, 9, and 6, can also be found hidden in plain sight in the Vedic, Christian, Buddhist, and Baha'i scriptures, as well as the Kabbalah, and I suspect they can be found in many other world scriptures and other historical records as well. They are hidden in our playing cards, and the tarot, and the game of chess, as well as its ancient Vedic counterpart, Chaturanga. Not to mention they verifiably form the basis for both our ancient and modern systems of time and imperial measurement. And the harmonic 3, 9, and 6 were certainly used with high precision in designing and constructing ancient temples, cathedrals, and culturally significant monuments, such as the hundreds of pyramids scattered all around the earth. And just a last disclaimer, this is a decryption of a very esoteric topic, still in its early days. There may be some corrections that need to be made, and there will be many additions to the theory in future. On to the numbers. Again, in most world scriptures, there's an idea of God or unity. In this system of mathematics, we do not really consider 1 as a unit for counting. Rather, we consider it an indication of a unity, a singularity, or a reference point. I once heard Marko Rodin say that counting like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 is just man's method for counting his pennies. I've found this statement to be very much the truth. Hence, we will consider the numeral 1 on its own to represent unity. But as it's well alluded to in, once again, pretty much all world scriptures, God's universal form can be considered from 3 simultaneous aspects: the Trinity, the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, sulfur, mercury, and salt, the 3, 9, and 6. And it can also be considered in 2 simultaneous forms: the unity and the first opposition to the unity, the mirror plane, masculine and feminine, Krishna and Radha, as above, so below, etc. Even in physics, it's becoming well understood that polarity can be divided into both 2 parts and 3 parts simultaneously, depending on whether we only consider the 2 mirrored spatial planes of the toroidal magnetic field, represented here by the 3 and 6, or whether we also consider the 3rd hyperspatial field, which we call the hyperboloidal dielectric or poloidal field, the source of the 0 point, represented by the 9. In this case, we're considering the positive and the negative poles of the toroid and the neutral point of the 0 point or the hyperboloid. So we have 3 fundamental numerals first to consider: 1, 3, 9, and 6. 1, as we mentioned already, represents the unity or the reference point. I believe that the first secret of the 3, 9, and 6 is that qualitatively they are actually ratios to one another rather than number sequences. Just as Marko and Malcolm both claim, 9 is our most important number. It's from the 9 that the 3 and the 6 can be divided. The numeral 9 is supposed to represent a fundamental whole unit, a ratio of 1 to 1. 9 is mentioned in the Bible as being the span of God's hand in inches, and the unit of measurement he used to mold all creation. Further, it's also mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, that Krishna simply being the Sanskrit name for God, eternally exists in his universal form, a form specifically not exceeding 9 inches. This number was not specifically written as God's unit for creation in 2 major world scriptures for a laugh, there is transparently precise correlation here. By considering 9 as our new base number instead of 1, we now have a fractal base number that can be divided into whole number thirds, represented by the numeral 3. The numeral 3 represents 1/3 of 9, but it simultaneously also represents 1/2 of 6. The numeral 6 represents not only double 3, but also 2/3 divisions of 9. The ratio of 6 to 3 can be condensed into the ratio of 2 to 1. The ratio of 9 to 3 can be condensed in the ratio of 3 to 1. The ratio of 9 to 6 can be condensed into the ratio of 3 to 2, a perfect fifth. In this way, we can qualitatively consider the 3, 9, and 6 as ratios to one another. What's more, as I mentioned earlier, I do not believe that counting by units of 1 and 10, binary, is all it's cracked up to be. Instead, I believe 3, 9, and 6 should be considered also as our standard fractal units for counting and the measurement of space and time, which they already are for space and time. Just as the whole unit 9 can be divided into 3 and 6, forming a trinity, 3 can also be subdivided one step further into the fractal into 1/3 and 2/3. 1 plus 2 equals 3. In our ancient forms of mathematics, sequences of numbers are considered in multiple dimensions by their individual digits, rather than only being read linearly from left to right. Therefore, 1 plus 2 can also be written as 12. 12. 1 plus 2 is the first fractional division of 3, and 12 is the first fractal expansion of 3. Next, 1/3 of 6 is 2. 2/3 of 6 is 4. 2 plus 4 equals 6, and therefore 24 equals 6. 24 is the first fractal expansion of 6, and 2 plus 4 is the first fractal division of 6. And oscillating back to the next expansion and contraction of the fractal from the 3, 1/3 of 12, the first fractal expansion of 3, is 4. 2/3 of 12 is 8. 4 plus 8 equals 12. 1 plus 2 equals 3. Therefore, 48 is the second fractal expansion of 3, and 4 plus 8 is the second fractal division. And then back to the fractal again of the 6, one more example. 1/3 of 24 is 8, and then 2/3 of 24 is 16. 8 plus 1 plus 6 equals 15. 1 plus 5 equals 6. So 24 is the third fractal expansion and contraction from the 6, and 2 plus 4, of course, equals 6. So 3 equals 1 plus 2 equals 12, equals 1 plus 2 equals 3. 6 equals 2 plus 4 equals 24. 2 plus 4 equals 6. 12 equals 4 plus 8 equals 12, equals 1 plus 2 equals 3. 24 equals 16 plus 8 equals 24, equals 2 plus 4 equals 6. 48 equals 32 plus 16 equals 48, equals 4 plus 8 equals 12, equals 1 plus 2 equals 3. 96 equals 64 plus 32 equals 96, equals 9 plus 6 equals 15, equals 1 plus 5 equals 6. 192 equals 128 plus 64 equals 192. 192, 1 plus 9 plus 2 equals 12, equals 1 plus 2 equals 3, and so on. You can see that there is also a doubling sequence simultaneously occurring here. 3, 6, 12, 24, and so on. In other words, we expand the 3 and 6 through the simultaneously but separately occurring doubling and thirding sequences. Doubling and halving, tripling, and thirding are our golden intervals. The 3 and 6 are AC, oscillating back and forth at a certain resonant frequency. The two inverse poles of the toroidal magnetic field, switching places repeatedly as the doubling sequence progresses simultaneously by the action of the thirding sequence. The 3 and 6 don't interact directly with each other, rather they act as the two harmonic divisions of 9, or two base harmonic intervals from 9. If we divide 12, the first expansion of 3, by 3 itself, we get 12 divided by 3 equals 4. There are 4 divisions of 3 within the 12, and so now we can consider that there is also a relationship between 4 and 3, now that 4 has come into play in the expanded fractal. We can call this relationship the ratio of 4 to 3, or a decimal ratio of 1.3333 repeating. Also a perfect fourth harmonic interval. The perfect fourth and perfect fifth are our most fundamental harmonic intervals for a reason. These are the ratios 4 to 3 and 3 to 2. In other words, 4 to 3 to 2. Another magic number, 432. 432 Hz being the frequency of the musical note A and the traditional basis for the constant pitch musical scale. Also 432,000 miles being the radius of the sun, and 432,000 years being the base unit of measurement for a yuga, a cyclic Vedic division for vast periods of time. And here we've already arrived at the secret of the fabled music of the spheres. We're going to go on a little bit of a tangent here, but from the digit sequence 432 alone, we can find the harmonic ratios of the planets to each other and their radiuses and diameters. So 432 represents the radius of the sun. Half of 432 is 216, 2,160 miles being the diameter of the moon. Half of 2,160 is 1,080, 1,080 miles being the radius of the moon. And 108 is the ratio between the diameters of the sun and the moon's distances between Earth. So it's 108 times their diameters is their distances between Earth. And I have another video specifically on the music of the spheres theory, so I encourage you to check that one out after this one. That's the plasmoid unification part 2 video. But so far we have only been expanding and contracting the 3 and the 6. We can find all of our other harmonic numbers through the fractal expansion sequences of the 9 and the unity. This works just the same as the 3 and the 6 sequence, simultaneous tripling and doubling. So, for example, 9 equals 2 plus 7 equals 27, 2 plus 7 equals 9, 9 equals 1 plus 8 equals 18, equals 1 plus 8 equals 9, 27 equals 18 plus 9 equals 189, 1 plus 8 plus 9 equals 18, equals 1 plus 8 equals 9, and so on again. The unity tripled is just 3, so it's the doubling sequence that's important in this case. After expanding out the unity with the doubling sequence, we can use reduction to mod 9, or Theosophic reduction, to contract the numbers back to their corresponding mod 9 or Theosophic root number. So 1 doubled is 2, 2 doubled is 4, 4 doubled is 8, 8 doubled is 16, and then 1 plus 6 equals 7, reducing it back to mod 9, or the Theosophic root number there. 16 doubled is 32, 3 plus 2 equals 5, 32 doubled is 64, 6 plus 4 equals 10 equals 1, 64 doubled is 128, and 1 plus 2 plus 8 equals 11 equals 2, and so on. And from this we can ascertain the mod 9 doubling sequence of vortex-based mathematics, 1, 2, 4, 8, 7, 5, and repeating endlessly. What's more, it turns out that the numbers 1 to 9 really are just variations of the unity 3, 9, and 6 in disguise once again. We can condense all of the other mod 9 numbers further back through the fractal to their so-called Theosophic roots by first expanding them and then again contracting them, a distillation of mod 9, so to speak. This is alternatively called the triangulation of numbers. So 1 equals 1, 2 equals 1 plus 2 equals 3, 3 equals 1 plus 2 plus 3 equals 6, equals 3 equals 6 equals 3 equals 6, and that just keeps going. 4 equals 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 equals 10 equals 1, 5 equals 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 equals 15 equals 6, 6 equals 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6, which equals 21, which equals 3, and then again we get that 6, 3, 6, 3 repeating sequence there. If we just keep going back and forth, they'll just reduce to each other each time. And then 7 equals 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6 plus 7 equals 28 equals 10 equals 1. 8 equals 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6 plus 7 plus 8 equals 36 equals 9. And 9 equals 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6 plus 7 plus 8 plus 9 equals 45, which of course equals 9 again. So in their most reduced fractal form, we only have the unity, 3, 6, and 9. It's the multi-dimensional operations that can be performed with these numbers, based on their ratios, which I believe are the true master key to mathematics and science. I've condensed the ideas we've covered so far into these 4 tables. I claim to have made this rediscovery myself, building directly on the work of my teachers, Malcolm Bendall and Marko Rodin, and if you use these tables or take these ideas further, I would appreciate you giving credit to Jordan of Alchemical Science or either of my teachers, but ultimately this is not knowledge that myself or anyone else owns or came up with by ourselves, and so I consider it completely open source for anyone to use or republish in any form. I would also like to credit my wife Emma, who helped to put together many of the pieces of the puzzle during our talks. And I also must mention the brilliant book Tarot of the Bohemians by Pappas, a dissertation on the mathematics hidden in the tarot and our everyday playing cards, which was a direct source for the Theosophic reduction and addition operations. But I'm aware that we've only told 1/3 of the story so far. Next we have the multi-dimensional halving sequences. As you can see in the 1 column, if we reduce the numbers back to mod 9, we obtain the doubling sequence of Marko's vortex-based maths. If we reduce the 6 and the 3 column back to mod 9, we obtain our oscillating 6 and 3. And if we reduce the 9 column back to mod 9, we'll always obtain 9. Now let's discover how the secret of the number 5 is that it qualitatively represents a half. The ratio of 1 to 0.5 is the ratio of 6 to 3. 0.5 is half of 1, 5 is half of 10, 1.5 is half of 3, and 4.5 is half of 9. So obviously this halving sequence table here is a mirror of the doubling sequence table we showed before. However, there is another sequence we can demonstrate using this table by explaining the secret of the number 5. If we remove the decimal point from our numbers, we obtain the multiplication sequence by 5, also equal and opposite to the halving sequence of 0.5. And here are those tables together showing the multiplication sequence of 5, which is the inverse and opposite of the halving sequence of 0.5. The decimal point is just removed in the table of the multiplication sequence. Now we need to understand how these numbers interact. Malcolm already shows how the expanded numbers interact in a circular form on his plasmoid unification model, and Marko Rodin already shows how the numbers interact on the skin of the toroid and various other ways in vortex-based mathematics. The next great puzzle is to show how they interact in 3D without the luxury of having a team of skilled 3D animators at our disposal, which we do not. I propose that we can do this through the ancient game of chess. Although the square of the chessboard is also 2D, the square represents matter and the third dimension, and therefore we can perhaps show how the numbers interact in 3D most simply using a square. We've become highly accustomed to thinking in boxes, so why not attempt to explain this theory first in a box too? Perhaps if we begin this method of thinking in boxes, we'll one day be able to think more clearly in circles, toroids, hexagons, and infinities. So we place the doubling sequence of the unity on the vertical axis of the board, and then we place the tripling sequence across the horizontal axis of the board. We follow the division of the squares of the grid for the doubling sequence on the vertical axis, and we follow the divisions of the black and white checkers for the tripling sequence on the horizontal axis. For this we can expand our columns using the proportional, harmonic, doubling and tripling sequence. Now here we have the table of most harmonic numbers, which I discovered through Jamie Buturf, but he credits Stanford University as the original source. You can check out my other video on Decrypting the Harmonic Chessboard Part 1 and find some of the initial operations that can be performed on this initial half construction of the board using the traditional movement patterns of the chess pieces. That video is my first attempt at piecing together the theory, and I'm refining it a little bit further for the second part in this series. Now what can we do with those empty squares, you may be wondering? It's unlikely that they should be left empty. Well, I wondered that too, and I tried a lot of different configurations to try and find the solution which would make the numbers truly interact in multiple dimensions. Needless to say, skipping over the immense detail of my search, I believe I have found the correct configuration, and this is it. The idea came directly from a conversation I had with Malcolm Bendall when he showed me some different sequences that he mapped out in tables himself according to the 6 dimensions of his plasmoid unification model. I've placed the sequence of multiplication by 5 in the empty columns, but as we've discovered earlier when we explored the halving sequence and their inverse, the multiplication by 5 sequence, the multiplication by 5 sequence is truly an equal and opposite inverse to the halving sequence. The only difference between them is a decimal point in this case. And so here is both of those examples together to show you how small the difference is, just one little dot. It therefore makes a lot of sense that the halving and multiplication by 5 sequence should be used to fill in the inverse columns of the chessboard, which occur between the 3, 9 and 6. It's as though we're looking at the secondary columns as if they're written on the other side of a glass window. And if we reduce our numbers back to mod 9, we'll find Marko Rodin's polarized family number group sequences here. And now I'll leave you with one last gem. It's from this polarized harmonic chessboard that we can find how orders of magnitude, the music of the spheres and the plasmoid unification model come about, without just adding zeros arbitrarily to our numbers or multiplying by 10. Instead, we'll simply use the traditional movements of the chess pieces to demonstrate. And this is seriously unbelievable stuff, so please stay tuned for my second part in the series on decrypting the harmonic chessboard to see how it's done, or just have fun playing around yourself in the meantime. I think this image gives you enough information to get going there. And remember that part 1 of the series is already up, so go ahead and check it out, and I'll be improving and refining that theory with new information in the future parts of the series. Thanks so much for watching until the end, and if you'd like to help allow me as much time as possible to work on this theory, please consider donating to Alchemical Science using the link in the description below. Every donation is really appreciated. Otherwise, subscribe to the channel, like the video. Thanks for watching.